So we're going to go to Jacksonville, Florida. This week's Cowboys opponent, where Broaddus worked in football for one full year. That year, 1998. The quarterback under center for the Jags, Mark Brunell. The running back, Fred Taylor.
Yeah.
Your wide receivers, Keenan McCardle and Jimmy Smith.
Yeah.
Tony Baselli, a probable Hall of Famer. Is he in the Hall of Fame yet? Tony Baselli was at left tackle. And Tom Coughlin, the coach. They went 11-5. They beat the Patriots in the wild card round and then lost to Vinny Testaverde and the Jets. What's the most memorable thing about that year for you, Bryan?
I wasn't prepared to work for Tom Coughlin. I wasn't prepared because I went Green Bay and then Philly. And, in Philly, we had the opportunity. We always talk about the opportunity, me and Mike Lombardi, to run the draft. And Mike and I thought we were going to be okay. I mean, I was like director of football operations, kind of a deal in Philly. And I felt like, okay, we're going to get an opportunity here. So when after the draft in April, in May, Jeff Lurie and Joe Banner made the determination that they were going to bring in Tom Modrak. And so I'm like, whoa, I don't have a job. And, Modrak interviews me like, listen, I had a scout there, a guy they brought in goes, you just had the worst draft in the history of the NFL. Guy told me that.
Wow.
And I said, do you want to wait maybe a couple of years to figure that one out? And he goes, no, I know you had the worst draft. And that's a
turned
guy,
out to be a great draft.
Yeah, it worked out well for Andy Reid and Philly and how they play. They went and got Don McNabb the next year, and it worked out really well for him. But I wasn't prepared. I'm thinking, and so Modrak brings me in, and he's like, "Well, if you want to scout the East Coast, you can do that." I went from being like running a department to like, nothing against just being a scout, but he was going to, you scout the East Coast, you're not really scouting,
Really?
I mean, you're hitting schools like, you're hitting the Ivies, you're hitting the Boston colleges and maybe a Syracuse. I mean, you're not hitting a lot of great schools. So it was kind of his way of saying, listen, I know you have a contract here, but I don't give a damn.
Who brought you in?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Jeff Lurie, Joe Banner, and those guys brought me in. Ray Rhodes brought me in. So I was like, okay.
So after running the draft, he's demoting you.
He's demoting me to the worst scout position you could probably have.
Wow.
So I'm like, and at the time I'd worked with a guy named Dick Geron in Green Bay, and Dick was the defensive coordinator for Coughlin in Jacksonville. And then I kind of was like what I did with the Eagles. I didn't tell them. I was like, well, can I have some time to think about this? And they're like, yeah, sure. Take as much as you need. So we
don't have anybody else that wants to scout the East Coast.
Exactly. So I'm kind of just sitting there, and I get on the phone, and Dick Geron calls me, and he goes, "Hey, listen, we got a spot down here in pro personnel with Jacksonville. You interested?" So I went down there and interviewed with Tom Coughlin and all that, and I'm thinking, man, I might as well go and be an assistant pro director in Jacksonville than I would be a East Coast scout. So
you were director of football operations with Philadelphia, and now you're going to go to Jacksonville and essentially be the assistant?
I'm an assistant pro personnel guy. So I'm instead of being a scout,
That's like two pegs down, isn't it?
Oh no, I went up. I went from being up top to being like the lowest guy, and then when I went to Jacksonville, I actually went back up.
Okay,
but not to the point of like I was running the organization. But
so you must have impressed Tom Coughlin in the interview.
I felt like I did because he offered me the job, and what I did was I played it off long enough that the Eagles would still have to pay me for 2 more weeks.
Okay.
So I kept like, I didn't make my decision in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
like
keep that check coming in.
Yeah, I was like,
now you're not married yet, are you?
No.
Okay.
This is the time when I lived in Philly, and I lived in this high rise, and for 1 year I never had anything in my refrigerator.
Okay.
Every day.
Sounds like you're having a good time.
I went out to eat every single night you could eat. I went out
and mornings for breakfast.
The mornings, yeah.
King's disease. That's how you got that gout.
Yeah. I tell you what,
living
man.
Too good.
I was living great. I really, really was. I'm like, man, single guy making really good money, and now I moved to Jacksonville.
You say you weren't ready to go to work for Tom Coughlin, but the interview went well. We have those two pieces of information. What was your first indication this was going to go wrong?
When we were standing on the practice field and during training camp, and I just walked over to the scouts, and like I'm trying to we're just talking, And the scouts all that work there all looking at me and go, "Get away from me, Bryan. Get away. Get away."
Oh, you had cooties?
Move away. And I'm like, "What? What are we doing?" And Tom had a rule that the scouts had to stand 10 yards apart from each other. So you couldn't stand on the field and talk about the players. So we all had to stand 10 feet apart. And then another rule he had was scouts couldn't wear sunglasses. You couldn't wear sunglasses on the field.
Oh, that's brutal.
So here we are in Jacksonville and the sun, in Florida.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting out there on the field, and I've got my prescription sunglasses. And
the prescription, coach.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You're about to get on Tom Coughlin's
I'm like,
bleep
I
list.
did. The security guy walks over, Bryan. He goes, "There's no sunglasses." And I go, "What?" I go, "No sunglasses on the field." And I'm like, "Well," they're prescription. And he goes, "It doesn't matter."
No, it does.
I literally took them off. That was the first. I didn't see a damn thing we did in practice that day. I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for all the rules.
What was his rules for the glasses? He think you're not.
He wanted to see
paying
your eyes.
attention?
You weren't
I
paying
want to see
attention.
you looking at these players.
Exactly.
I want to know you're watching.
That's exactly what it was.
Oh my God!
Because he didn't want people not paying attention, and he didn't want you like if I had an Oakley deal. He didn't want you to have a high. If we were going to wear,
what a hater, bro.
If we were going to wear sunglasses, we were all going to wear the same sunglasses. Nobody could go high-end aviator or all these.
What a weirdo.
Yeah, but it got worse. We got in training camp, and he gave us a manual. Things you couldn't wear white socks.
Why?
You couldn't wear white socks.
For what?
Yeah,
it's sports.
It was a weird thing.
So what color were your socks?
Black.
Okay.
And I always pushed him down, but he wouldn't let you wear
You pushed him down so you can see him?
Yeah, I pushed him all the way down.
And high water joints on?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, so it was so funny because there were all these rules. You couldn't lean back in your chair. You couldn't, it was like you would sit in a meeting and everybody would have to sit completely straight up and down, and you couldn't cross your legs in the meeting.
Wow.
So you're sitting in a meeting.
This guy's running a Boy Scout troop.
That's what he come up with all of these. He must come up with them on the fly.
Lucius,
this is a brand new rule. I just thought of it right now. Because this guy, I don't like how he's sitting.
Lucius, it was amazing. It was amazing how many rules that I broke initially in there. And then finally, it was and then I had the opportunity. To go work with the Cowboys. I was kind of secretly talking with Larry Lacewell at the time.
Oh.
And I'm like, Lace, you got to get me out of here.
Please.
Well, that's interesting.
Even though we had a great team. I mean,
you guys were 11-5.
Oh, yeah.
In the playoffs. Did you think at any point you were going to win the Super Bowl?
You know what? We had the type of roster. This is when Brady and them were Brady was a couple years away. You could kind of see what the Patriots were doing. They had Pete Carroll as a coach, so you kind of feel like, man, that might be a Pittsburgh was rolling right on.
It was the Broncos that won it, right?
Yeah, it was the Broncos that won it. But yeah, it was one of those things where I felt like we had a good roster. The biggest problem.
I mean, that Jacksonville team knocked on the door several times.
They did. The thing that was really hard about our locker room is that we had a bunch of guys that were really into Christianity. I mean, big, like the Mark Brunells and the Tony Bosellis. We had a divided locker room. I mean, we had a really divided locker room.
Heathens and Christians?
Exactly.
That's a new shirts and skins right there.
Absolutely. I mean, we had guys like Tony Brackens from Texas, Kevin Hardy from Illinois. These guys ran the streets hard. And I'll never forget, Kevin Hardy threw a party at his house. We were playing golf one day at the club, and Hardy's got a house over there off the tee box. And literally, it's like baby dolls over there. As we're all teeing off and
sweet.
They're like, hey, Kevin.
Like a music video.
Yeah, it's like we're all waving. Hey, Kevin, how's it going? Yeah, you guys circle on back. Yeah.
See you at practice.
Yeah, but we had, and then you had the guys like Mark Brunell and Boselli in there, and they really were like, no, those guys are problems, Tom. Those guys are problems over there,
Who's getting wild tonight?
Yeah.
And so,
man, it sounds like a lot of people that couldn't mind their own business, including the coach.
That's exactly what it was. I kind of was for the point listen, these guys are great players, and we're all talking about we're sitting there acting like we need to get rid of these guys. just because they like to have fun.
Yeah.
See, Tom never liked me because I was always a
Oh,
lot of people,
I could see that.
I always
Tom related to the Bible thumpers a little more.
Yeah. And I'm like, there's a reason why we're winning these games because of guys like Brackens and Hardy and and those guys. I mean, that's why we're winning the games. It was you get Burnell, and Burnell would like one time. I think I've told the story before. Burnell he was like, Tom goes, Mark, we're throwing way too many interceptions. Way too many interceptions. Threw too many interceptions today. And he goes, Coach, it was God's will today.
Oh,
it's God's will.
In the name of the Father.
Yeah. And Tom looked at him and said, God does not want you to throw interceptions. God does not want you to throw interceptions.
Mark Brunell was a good quarterback, though.
He was.
Yeah.
We drafted him in Green Bay, so that's how I knew him.
Okay.
I knew him from we drafted him in Green Bay, so when I got down there, I kind of had a guy, but I learned about that locker room, and I learned about the coaches. That was a rough year. That was a rough year for me because I just closed my door and started watching tape and trying to get ready for the next job because I'm thinking, man, I don't know if I can. But there's people that he's always had with him throughout that have just followed him everywhere that he's gone.
And this is where you lived on the golf course, right?
I lived at Sawgrass. This is when the team doctor said, he's like, hey, Bryan, do you have a place to live? And I'm like, no, I really don't, Doc. And he goes, hey, got a house for you over, and I'm like, where is it? He goes,
my man.
Yeah, he goes, I got a house for you over there, and I go, where is it, Doc? He goes, it's at Sawgrass, TPC, and I'm like, Doc, I'm just a scout. He goes, $1,200 a month.
Dang.
And I go, really? I go, what's the catch? He goes, well, the catch is I don't want my wife to get the house. We're getting a divorce. So I'm just going to rent you the house. And so literally I lived on the 18th green at Sawgrass there at TPC there, island with the island hole and all that.
No way.
Yeah. And so there's all these pro golfers, Vijay Singh, Jim Furyk, all these golfers living around me. Mm-hmm. And I'm here at this house that I barely had enough furniture for one of the rooms. I had my bedroom and then a living room area and all. And
weren't you entertaining and stuff and throwing crawfish boils back there?
No, I wasn't doing the crawfish boil stuff back then.
You were sitting in the ultimate bachelor pad and working 18-hour days in the NFL.
I was.
With a highlighter and some kids measurements.
You guys got me right. I mean, I could have been like Kevin Hardy and those guys throwing parties in the back.
At least for you. At least for two. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But I if I had to do it over, I probably would do that. Yeah.
As you should.
If you had to do it over, would you have punched Tom Coughlin before you left?
You know what?
Just one good one.
One good one? Nah, I did not.
Wouldn't want
chest
that on
bump
your
him.
ledger.
A good chest bump while you're yelling at him.
I'll tell you that story that year we won 5 straight games.
Yeah.
And remember that when I went jogging with him? And
tripped the man.
No, he's I had to let him win every time after the jog. He's huffing and puffing. I had to let him win. And it's he jogged with me for 5 straight weeks just because he's superstitious. And I hated it. He wouldn't say a word the whole time. He just wouldn't say anything.
And this was every day, Monday through Friday?
Every day, Monday through Friday for 5 weeks. We get beat by Doug Flutie in Buffalo. I've never been so happy for us to lose a game. Seriously, I was like, thank God I don't have to jog with him anymore.
Those were good times with Doug Flutie and the Bills. Man, that was a fun thing to be a fan of.
Good teams.
What did you think of living in Jacksonville?
You know what? It was really spread out. It was super, super spread out. Where I was in Ponte Vedra was, way away from the facility. The facility was we're at the stadium downtown, and then the airport was way, way far away too. So I did a ton of driving in that. I think it's Jacksonville's the I don't know, by area of square miles, probably the biggest city in the country, I believe, when it comes to square miles and stuff like that. So there was
ain't nothing bigger than Oak Cliff.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're right about that. There was a lot of
just a joke.
When you go and you say, oh, it's just over here. Just over here was 25 miles. Just over here was 20 miles. It was never, but I'll tell you, Jacksonville really is pretty, like I say, Ponte Vedra was beautiful. St. Augustine, if you ever go to St. Augustine, go down the one. You can have a lot of fun in that Florida.
Did the Eagles guy ever call you back and
he died?
Crow?
He died. He died. The guy died like 2 years later. So I never.
Unfortunate.
So he never got to see your fruits.
Yeah. He got to see the. He got to see the team. And,
he got to see it.
Maybe that's what killed him.
But he never. Yeah. But he never ever came up to me and said, "Man, y'all was wrong."
Nah, he did. He seen it. I got a drop for you. Hold on.
The more you around, the more you're going to find out.
All right.
Were you surprised you didn't get another chance to be the director of football operations somewhere?
I should have never left Green Bay. Every one of those guys in Green Bay end up being general managers of a team. I should have never left Green Bay. I appreciate the opportunity to go run a draft, but that was probably my 15 minutes of fame.